Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and I'm so glad that we have such a wonderful turnout to hear Bill speak. The subject of his talk will be the 3 iron rules of street photography. I did have a few things that I wanted to mention. We do have to I want to make a point of thanking so many of the organizations that help to make exhibitions like Bill's possible. The Kresge Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, the Erb Family Foundation, and the Michigan Council of Arts and Cultural Affairs. I did want to mention too, I think we have a lot of photographers out there and other artists that we have an open call for entry for our annual Silver Medal exhibition. The juror for that exhibition is Tim Van Laar, the new Fine Arts Chair at CCS, and the deadline is Sunday, May 9th at 5 p.m. And you can download the entry form on the Scarab Club website, or if you leave your email address in the little binder under the Scarab, we'll add you and keep you posted on upcoming events and exhibitions.
I think you meant March 9th.
What did I say? Oh my goodness, no. March 9th. March 9th. So I'll just turn it over to Bill. Thank you so much, Bill.
There we go. Okay, yeah, I can stand up and talk, right? Okay, and I'm going to stand up because I've been standing up most of my life and I don't feel comfortable sitting down. So I appreciate your coming this evening, and I'll do my best to make some sense out of street photography. There's a couple of things I'd like to straighten out right from the beginning. What I'm going to be saying about my photography, street photography, is to me. I'm not implying at all that this is the way it ought to be, that you ought to be shooting the way I'm shooting, which is not the way I function anyway. I think that to be a viable photographer, you have to develop your own system, and that's what I've done with street photography. It reflects my attitude toward photography and toward the street. So that's the first thing that I want to get straight, that you don't think that I'm forcing it down your throat, that if I see any photographs you do, they gotta look like mine. That's not it, that they gotta look like yours. Okay, the other thing is a question I've got for everybody. Does the year 1982 mean anything to anybody? The world changed on that date. Okay. Nobody had a birthday on that date, that year. Anyway, the thing I'm referring to affects my work too, because you have to recognize, first of all, that these were all taken with film. All taken with film. And on 1982, what changed was the world just backed up or looped ahead and became a different world, and that is in photography. In 1982, the National Geographic published one of their issues with the 2 pyramids in Giza, moved them closer together to make a more attractive cover. The first time that this happened, and it produced an uproar. People were so upset by this because National Geographic, of all magazines, to do something like that, set something up, destroy the reality of it, was just something that they couldn't divide. And so, if on the other hand, if you were thinking of it, the importance of that moment. Life magazine, for example, published first in 1936. Most of you probably nobody here was alive in 36. I was in high school at the time, but I remember my family was one of the first subscribers to Life magazine, and we had it every day for, I don't know, as long as I was there. And Life magazine was being published weekly until 1970. So that's almost 40 years. And over that whole 40 years, and I saw most of them, I won't say all of them, something might have slipped by while I wasn't looking, but I had not remembered a single request or complaint about the photograph being messed with, changed and altered in some way. It may have happened, but I was never aware of it, and I was pretty well up on what Life was doing and how many issues. At one point they suggested there were, the editorial staff of Life decided that, or said that Life magazine, each issue with Life magazine was seen by 50 million people. Now that's a lot of people for week after week after week for almost 40 years. But the point I'm trying to make is that up until that 82 incident, in which change was recognized that it happened, the digital world was growing and the film world was sort of fading off a little bit. There's still people doing film, but basically what is being used today for most purposes is digital equipment. And so I'm saying that the reason I bring this up is because all the work that I've done here, these are all my photographs, and they were all done within the era of film industry, before digital. And so what you see on the wall is what I saw through the camera. Now I'm sort of into digital because you almost have to do it because it's so convenient to do a lot of things. If you want to be a real artist, I suppose, this is the only way to do it. I still insist on being a photographer, but I've fallen victim to the ease in which you can work with digital photography. But I just want to make that sure that when you're looking at these photographs, and I talk about them, I'm talking about them as photographs made with film and the subject matter, except that mine's in color, and I'll go into that in a while. These are the way I saw the photographs, the people. And so I think that was I don't see it as a handicap, I see it as a positive effect. That I love black and white, and I'll talk about that in a little while too. But I want to get those two things straight in my mind and in your mind so that you understand actually where I'm coming from and how the photographs are actual, unmanipulated photographs taken over the last, I don't know, 50, 60 years that when I was photographing in Detroit in the street. Now, since I've got that straight in both our minds, so we're talking the same thing. This is where it all started. This little camera, plastic job, the first plastic camera ever made in about early 30s. I was in high school at the time. I saw an ad in some magazine, maybe Life magazine, I don't remember, but it's a Univex camera. It sold for 39 cents. Now, 39 cents was a lot of money. When I bought it, it was in probably 35, 36, something like that. I was making 10 cents an hour in a grocery store. Now, that's not a lot of money when you got thinking about taking dates and gasoline for the car. I really didn't own it yet, but 10 cents is not a lot, but I could save up 10 to get 39 cents, which I set away and got the camera. And the problem was that I couldn't take photographs because you had to buy film from the company, Universal Camera Company in New York, and it was 59 cents. Well, I couldn't. And 59 cents was way out of my possibility at the time. But you would then get a roll of film. A roll of film did come with the camera, so that first roll of film was usually 10 cents. But to get that 57, 59-cent jump, you could get another roll of film, they would process it, send it back to you with a set of prints. I think there were 6 on a roll. But this is where it started. Now eventually, I fell in love with this camera, but I couldn't afford a film, so I would just pretend. These are pretty good shots, like Carla here, a great shot, Carla. Never had a print, though. I couldn't make prints. So I finally traded. This was a big day in my life. I traded with a friend of mine. My dad had given me his stamp collection. He got tired of it and realized it was just a waste of time as far as he was concerned. So he gave it to me, and in about 2 weeks I was tired of it. This is not what I want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but then came home with a friend of mine from school, in Cooley High School at the time, and he told me that he had an Argus camera that he wanted to get rid of. And I said, well, I've got a pretty good stamp collection, how about a trade? He said, yeah, I'll bring it to school next tomorrow. So we did, and we made a trade on the spot. I loved the Argus, and he loved the stamp collection, so it was a no-win situation. So now I had a camera, and I could buy film for it in a camera shop, which I couldn't do for this. But I set up and made it enlarger. Any of you people ever had Ovaltine? Somebody who knows what Ovaltine is. That's great. It was a sort of a powdery thing. See, I never loved milk, so I never grew up. I stopped at this where I am now and never moved forward. So, but that was not my mother's fault, because she kept feeding me milk and she thought that would do it. I couldn't stand to drink milk. I just didn't like the looks of it or the taste of it. But if she put this Ovaltine in it, I could drink it. Okay. Well, I used an empty can Ovaltine can. It's about that deep. So, and mounted the Leica camera on the end, because you can't, you can't do a lot with using prints that are only 35 millimeters in the side. So I had to get larger. So I set my Argus camera on the bottom, attached it to the Ovaltine can, put a socket with a 100-watt lamp in it. You couldn't get within 10 feet of the larger when it was on for more than 5 minutes, because the can got so hot. I'm surprised it didn't turn red. But I was into photography, and the problem that I had with photography, and right now I was, by this time I had belonged to a camera club, and at that time in Detroit, in the early to mid 30s, photography was a hobby, nothing else but a hobby. Yeah, Stieglitz had a gallery on the East Coast of New York, but he had sort of dropped photography to a low degree, and was now dealing primarily with his painter friends, and where there was some money to, photography still wasn't selling. And on the West Coast, there was the F-64 group with Ansel Adams and Weston, but they didn't influence the middle part. In Detroit was nothing. There was nothing here. If you wanted to talk to photography to somebody, you went to a camera club or a camera shop, which I did. And I was with the camera shop, or club rather, for maybe a total of 10 years. But I pretty soon got tired of this, because I was reading avidly about history of photography and everything else. And photography made sense to me, but only as a hobby. So I decided, well, I can't really take this hobby and make a career out of it. I didn't quite see it really didn't interest me to be a commercial photographer for no particular reason. But the real reason, I suppose, was that in my family, it was understood. You grew up with the understanding that high school graduation did not end education. You had to go through college. And so I was set for that. And I decided now, instead of working with using a hobby as something I was interested in, I decided to follow my dad, because during the Depression years, when I was growing up into high school age, I guess, I could see my dad was the only one of all my friends who worked every day through the Depression. And the rest of them had gone back, sold their houses or moved in with their grandparents and all this. So I saw there was a big opportunity in being an engineer because my dad just worked throughout the whole Depression. So I enrolled at U of D and got a degree in architectural engineering.